yeah, we're in. We're
Not
locked
one
in.
would make it out alive. Yet to this day, the circumstances surrounding this incident remain as one of the strangest mysteries
Oh
in
yeah.
history. What
Lord,
happened
nah.
on this mountain? Where is everyone? And why is the Kamar Daban incident so incredibly unsettling?
Correct. I don't know, man. We better answer the questions. That's all I know. Answer no
Tonight's
questions.
video is sponsored by...
Oh, get your bag. Get your bag. Get your bag.
For a while now.
Get that bag. Get that bag.
Siberia, August 1993. The river is freezing cold. Snow melts from the Kamar Daban
About
mountain
like
range.
15 years ago.
overhead.
Something like that. Something like that. The
Your
maths.
kayak cuts through the water.
No, that's
You
not 15.
take in the fresh mountain
Maybe
air
like 20.
and the rugged landscape. It's a long overdue escape from the city. Out here, the only signs of civilization are power lines running over the mountains, which are easy enough to ignore. But out of nowhere, something catches your eye, and the peaceful atmosphere dissolves.
Oh.
There's someone standing on the far shore of the river, framed starkly against the trees. It's a teenage girl. She's waving her arms frantically, screaming for you to stop.
Oh.
From this distance, you can't quite make it out, but it looks almost like her jacket is stained with blood.
Oh, that's not
You
good
don't
either.
hesitate. You dive into the frigid water and swim to shore. And when you reach the girl, she collapses into your arms.
Oh.
She's
Okay.
delirious, inconsolable. You can barely make out half of what she's saying through her sobs. She says she's scared, that she's all alone.
Right.
You wonder why this girl's out in the wild by herself. But what she says next answers your question and makes your blood run as cold as the river. Everyone else is dead.
Oh. And you're the lone survivor. This is on some Stranger Things 11 shit. Interesting. In Siberia. Got you. We in
A
Siberia.
week earlier, August 2nd, 1993. Two hiking groups from Kazakhstan climb up a steep trail
Oh, I know where
away
that
from
is.
the nearest town. They're heading into the wilds of southern Siberia's Kamar Daban mountain range.
Oh.
They're a school-sponsored hiking expedition, mostly in their teens and early 20s. One group is led by a man named
School-sponsored hike expedition? What type of school is taking y'all on hikes? Like
Konstantin Kazantsev.
hikes?
The other is
Expedition?
led by Lyudmila
In
Korovina,
school?
an experienced hiker who has traveled these mountains before and who also happens
fuck
to be
they
the
be
mother of
going on
one
in
of
school over there?
Konstantin's student hikers. Lyudmila's
Yo,
group will be taking a high-altitude
BB,
route
appreciate
across
the
the
follow,
mountain
my boy.
range
Appreciate you.
before descending back down towards civilization. On the map, their route follows a rough arc across the mountains and back to a small lake called Lake Padavoy. They
Got you.
have 2 tents and will camp along the 40-kilometer route. While Lyudmila's group takes the summit, Konstantin will guide his group along a lower altitude valley route following the river.
These names are crazy. Your name is Constantine?
Despite the lower elevation, Konstantin's group's route is technically the more difficult of the two. The difficulty of the Russian alpine routes are measured on a scale of 1 to 6,
Oh boy.
with 1 being a beginner slope and
It's
6
something different
being
when it's the
near
Russian
vertical,
Alpines.
only to be attempted by experts. Lyudmila's route is rated a 3, which makes it a moderately difficult slope, around 35 to 45 degrees and icy. This requires confidence and sure footing, but it's not a grade that requires special
Yo, Jacob,
equipment.
appreciate the follow.
Konstantin's
Appreciate
route,
you.
by comparison, is a 4, which usually indicates some steep rocky sections at an incline of more than 55 degrees. The plan is for the two groups to begin and end the multi-day hike together, with several days in between, in which the two
They're
groups
gonna
will
do
separate and
all
hike
that
their respective routes. So when
in
the trail
2
forks,
days.
the valley group will take the low road, the summit group will take the high road, and on August
Valley groups
5th,
and
they'll
summit
meet
groups,
back
they
up
are
at the
tweaking.
designated lake. While it's still summer, weather up in the mountains can be fickle in Siberia, with snowfall beginning as early as late August. Anticipating this,
August.
Lyudmila contacted local weather monitoring stations ahead of time.
August.
They told her the worst she could expect is a mild chance of wind and rain. Nothing to be too concerned about.
Don't ever trust them fake ass phony weather apps and them weathercasting. They be lying. They be lying. They don't know what's really
Except
going
for
on.
this.
Yeah, Mother Nature one is like, fuck it, I'm gonna fucking throw
They
the
were
damn
given a stark,
avalanche. They gonna
cryptic
do it.
warning as they departed a nearby town for the mountains. One of the locals urged the hikers to be careful as wildlife in the area was behaving strangely.
Like this art style though, this shit nice.
No one could explain why, but something in the mountains was driving animals insane. And most recently, bears in the area had been witnessed throwing themselves in front of trains. Lyudmila and Konstantin's groups arrive at the fork in the trail. Lyudmila does a quick head count of her 6 students:
Throwing
Sasha,
itself in.
Denis, Timur, Victoria, Tatiana, and Valentina. They're all here, all ready to go.
Okay.
The groups say goodbye for now and part ways. Following her
They
map,
squatted up.
Lyudmila guides her summit group along a river through a nearby pass. Before long, their group is walking uphill at a steady pace, through the trees and into the mountains. So far, the weather is favorable, warm summer air. Lyudmila is
Nice.
relieved that the weather forecast remains accurate, as there are
For
some
now.
inexperienced hikers in her group. Lyudmila, aware that her group must keep up their strength, insists that they eat 4 times a day, including snacks during rest stops.
Oh,
She knows
4 times a day?
that some people think of her as hardened, a survivalist drill sergeant for her students, pushing them to their limits. But in her own mind, the safety of her hikers is always her first concern.
Hey, that's good though. That's a
They're
leader.
making good
That's who
time
you want to
and
be
are able
leading,
to summit
at
the
least.
first ridge ahead of schedule. Even the least experienced hikers, the 24-year-old Tatiana and the 16-year-old Victoria, managed to keep up. For both of them, it's their first
I
grade
forgot
3
they
hike,
teenagers, bro.
a major milestone of any aspiring mountaineer.
This is a fucking
For
school
now,
expedition,
the
bro.
summit group is riding high,
16
but
year
they
old
know a lot more terrain
hiking the
awaits
fucking
them over the
Alpines.
coming days. And something else awaits them, something they can't possibly know about, because they're miles from any remaining civilization.
Oh yeah,
The winds
GG's.
and weather forecasts for Kamar Daban are shifting, and it's clear it's for the worse.
Figured much. I
August
knew that would
4th.
happen.
2 days into the hike, Lyudmila's early confidence starts to wane.
And didn't they say that it was supposed to be done in 2 days?
The group reaches a treeless alpine zone, and here their fortunes turn. The weather sours. Heavy rain and wind whips and tears at the 7 hikers. Visibility is poor, and the temperature is dropping rapidly.
Oh,
Their progress slows to a crawl.
oh my gosh.
Lyudmila clutches
Heavy
onto
rain
her map
and
like
wind?
a lifeline,
Not a
making
good
sure
mix.
that they stay on the proper path. One of the worst things that can happen in these conditions is to stray off course and get lost. Lyudmila knows her students won't make the ridge before nightfall, and so she barks orders through the raging wind, instructing the group to make camp.
Oh no.
The students spring to action and begin setting up their tents in an open, flat area about 2 miles above the tree line. It's exposed, but Lyudmila reasons that they had better play it safe and not push themselves. She urges her students to forage before it gets too dark. Keeping their strength up is important, and there's no telling how long they're going to need to wait out the storm. The group manages to find deposits of golden root in the area, and they hurriedly gather as much as they can. It's rich in minerals and nutrients, a perfect supplement to their cache of supplies. Once camp is set up, they cluster into 2 tents for the night, one for the boys and one for the girls. Lyudmila hunkers down with Tatiana, Victoria, and Valentina, trying their best to stay warm. Outside, the temperature plummets and the rain turns to snow.
Oh man.
Lyudmila does her best
Not the
not to
rain
show
to
it,
snow combo.
but she's concerned. This isn't where they were supposed to camp for the night. It's too exposed. Also,
Oh.
for days, she's been growing increasingly concerned that her map of the area is inaccurate.
What the fuck do you mean your map of the area is inaccurate? You didn't get the recent update, bitch? You didn't get the patch notes? And you didn't even let nobody know?
At the summit, known as Titran's Peak, there would be a sturdy structure and firewood waiting for them, but Lyudmila can't tell how close they are to it. She decides that it isn't worth the gamble to try and reach a wooden structure that may or may not actually be where her map claims it is. As of now, the students are shivering.
You're
but
going
otherwise
crazy, not
seem
even
in
knowing
good
what you're
spirits.
letting these people astray. You don't even know what the fuck going
Lyudmila's
on.
concern is growing.
You don't
If
got
the
the
storm
update.
goes on for much longer, things could turn sour very, very quickly. But even still, she puts on a brave face for her students. She's been on worse hikes than this, and they all know it. It's her confidence and experience that
You
gives
ain't been
courage
on the worst
to
part
even
yet,
the least
sis.
experienced hiker, even if it's all for show. Meanwhile, far below, Constantine's Valley Group is having a perfectly pleasant time. At their lower elevation, there's no wind or snow, and they all get a restful night's sleep in relative comfort.
You lucky motherfuckers.
On August 5th, they arrive at Lake Padavoy, right on schedule.
Oh.
The small lake is the agreed upon.
What the hell
rendezvous.
happened to her map then? What's going on? Y'all drawing up fake maps. You don't got no patch notes, no updates. You got the latest, oldest version. Update your shit, man. What the fuck you talking about?
Where Constantine's
They're
Valley
on
Group
schedule.
and Lyudmila's
And y'all are
Summit
up there
Group
shivering in the
are to link
mountains.
back up. But there was no sign of the Summit Group when Constantine arrives.
And then she's not even trying to go towards
So
the
he
shit
tells
that
his students to unshoulder their packs and to relax a while. They can wait.
Yeah, because they got time.
One of the members of this party is
GG's
Natalia
is
Korovina,
definitely GG's.
Lyudmila's 16-year-old daughter.
Appreciate
She
the
takes off
gifts,
her
though.
backpack
Appreciate-
and helps the others set up their tents. She isn't concerned about her mother's tardiness. She understands better than anyone that Lyudmila is a cautious person. Plus, the Summit Group has several inexperienced teenagers. She'd want to make sure her group is safe before moving on.
Wait a minute. You're telling me the Summit Group that's got the most inexperienced people are up on the mountains? Why the fuck would y'all put them up there with the altitudes of what happens on the mountain range? Why the fuck ain't y'all down there doing this shit? Why ain't y'all the ones up there doing it? What's going on here?
When they're finished setting up the
put
tents,
the
she starts
newbies
to wander along the lake
on
shore,
expert
looking
rank?
up at the Kamar Daban Mountains. From the lake, she doesn't have a direct view of where her mother would be, but she notices something strange about the trees in the distance.
Her mother.
They aren't standing upright, but are at an angle, like
Oh.
they've been smoothed over by an enormous comb.
Oh.
Combined with some scattered clouds around the peaks, she assumes that means there are pockets of bad weather at the high altitude.
Yeah.
Lyudmila and her students might be getting some rain and wind.
And
she's
they're stuck in the
concerning
worst pocket.
Nothing she hasn't handled before.
Stuck in the worst pocket. Uh-oh.
Suddenly, however, Natalia stops in her tracks. A set of eyes are staring out at her from the foliage nearby.
Oh, it's just a
unblinking.
deer.
It's a moose.
Oh, it's just a moose.
Natalia's mouth falls open, and
Oh,
she wants to
well.
call the other hikers,
Moose are humongous.
but she
So
doesn't.
This ain't no little something.
Mooses always steer clear of hikers, but for some reason, this one isn't intimidated by their presence at all.
Oh,
In fact, there's an almost aggressive air to its
that's
posture.
the king elk. Yo,
It's an
Romeo, appreciate the
unsettling
follow.
encounter, and that's when she remembers what the people in town told her about the bears in the area.
Huh?
Something isn't right, and the animals can feel it. Slowly, she backs away. The moose boldly stands its ground.
Oh,
Natalia returns to her group and tries to put the moose
oh that
out of her
nigga's not
mind.
scared of nothing.
She reminds herself that animals sometimes behave strangely, just like people
He's
do.
trying to go at it.
She'll have to remember
Ethan,
to
appreciate
tell her
the
mother
follow.
about this. A day passes, then another.
Oh,
The mood begins to shift,
it's been a
and
minute.
concern sets in. there's a chance that the summit group isn't even on the mountain at all. Maybe when the weather got bad, they retraced their steps and went back out the way they hiked
Nah, nigga,
in.
nah.
Or perhaps they hustled down to the rendezvous point early and continued on before the valley group arrived.
She don't even know where she
But
is on
then
the map,
again,
gang.
maybe not. The uncertainty of it all weighs heavily on them, especially Natalia. On the second night, she dreams about her mother. In this dream,
And that's your
Lyudmila
ma,
speaks
Dukes.
directly to her, telling her that she can't get off the mountain. Natalia wakes in shock and has difficulty sleeping the rest of the night. Thoughts and fears about her mother's safety keep her awake.
Yeah, I get that though.
She tries to
As
tell
they should.
herself that she's just being silly, that her mother's group is so late simply because Lyudmila is being cautious about the weather. But after 48 hours, these excuses ring more and more hollow.
Yeah,
At
it's not looking
breakfast,
good.
she tells Constantine about her dream. She pleads with him to go back up the mountain and search. It is a grade 3 hike after all, and they don't need special gear. Constantine is sympathetic to her
Grade
concerns,
3.
but reminds her that they only have enough supplies for their full trek. They don't want to double back in search of Lyudmila, only to run out of food and put their own hikers at risk.
Oh my god, bro! But it's I'm not gonna lie though. That's a good damn, bro. Not gonna lie though. That's a good reason. I mean, shit. Do I want to turn back for these motherfuckers? Damn. I mean, it ain't my fault. They ain't get the patch notes. They ain't get the updates, nigga. That ain't my fault. I'm updated. We out here. We made it. We made it. But did they? Look, shit. The nigga should have been paying attention to the map updates. Shorty was tripping. But that's her mom, dude. She like, come on, bro. That's my mom. I need to know what's going on with my mom. It's like, fuck. We gonna put everybody else at risk for one person? I get it, your mom, but sure. It's your mom, but
He's reassuring.
she's
Firm,
one person.
a good leader like her mother, and so she accepts his reasoning. They're skilled hikers, sure, but they're not a professional search
It
and
is
rescue
great.
team.
I'm saying that's true though.
Soon after, they reach their final destination, a small town on the shores of the enormous Lake Baikal. But a cloud hangs over their arrival, because there's no sign of Lyudmila's group here either. Natalia is beside herself now. They came together. The two groups were supposed to leave together. Lyudmila even has train tickets for the whole group. Natalia doesn't know what to do. She's always looked up to her mother for strength, confidence, and this uncertain danger has no easy solution. Constantine's eyes return to the high peaks looming in the distance. He begins to fear that he's made a terrible decision that'll haunt him for the rest of his life.
Oh,
What
no.
on earth, he wonders, is happening up on the mountain?
Yeah. What is happening on that mountain? It's a fucking update that don't nobody know about.
The night of August 4th. On the peak, Lyudmila and her students aren't getting any sleep. In the early morning hours, one of the students from the boys' tent trudges over to Lyudmila's tent. It's Sasha, an inexperienced 23-year-old hiker. He's like a surrogate son to Lyudmila. He tells her that the boys are uncomfortable. The wind and the cold are too much to bear.
Oh.
At this elevation, there's no tree cover, no protection from the storm.
Mm.
Their tents are no match for the relentless wind.
Fuck.
At 4 in the morning, the tethers snap. Everyone scrambles out into the bitter cold, struggling to resecure their shelters.
Oh, it's over, bruh. It's over, bruh. And it's like, it's to that point where it's like, do I want to sit here and freeze to death? Or am I going to get the fuck out of here? Or am I just going to try to die and get out? I'm not going to sit here and turn into a popsicle. I'll turn into a popsicle on my way out.
Snow seeps into the tents, soaking through the sleeping bags. It's a miserable, punishing night. Finally, at dawn, Lyudmila tells them it's time to go. They must descend immediately.
Yeah. I should have did
After
that
a quick
couple nights
breakfast
ago.
of canned stew, the group begins hiking back down the
Couple
mountain
nights ago.
to the south. While they're still roughly following their planned route, they've abandoned any attempt to summit the peak and instead seek protection from the severe weather 2.5 miles below where there's tree cover. The heavy winds continue, making it difficult to progress. Visibility is dismal. Then suddenly, at about 11 a.m., Sasha falls down. The other hikers help him to his feet, but soon he collapses again. He's starting to fall behind. Lyudmila hangs back to help him, telling the other hikers to go ahead. She and Sasha will catch up. The 5 other students comply, grabbing onto each other to stabilize themselves against the wind. Like a phalanx of Roman soldiers, they make their way slowly and deliberately down the mountain. They're making progress, and the tree line is beginning to feel achievable. But soon, they hear Lyudmila's voice shouting from behind them.
Oh.
She's screaming for help. Leaving the phalanx, 17-year-old Valentina rushes back to help their leader. She arrives to find Lyudmila crouched by Sasha's body, despondent. The young man who had been complaining of cold mere hours before isn't moving. Valentina
Caught
looks
that
closer,
hypothermia, bro.
and she
It's
sees
over.
that his eyes are vacant, staring off into the distance.
It's over for bro. Yo, what's good, Corbin?
Sasha is dead.
What's good? What's good?
Overcome with shock, Valentina is momentarily unable to speak or breathe.
Damn.
It feels like she's stumbled into a nightmare. But the nightmare is only beginning, because a moment later, Lyudmila collapses as well.
Oh, the later
The
down.
other students see her go down,
It's over.
and panic sweeps through the group
It's
like
over.
a wildfire.
She done seen the later. They done
phalanx
seen the
breaks.
leader go down.
Valentina looks on in terror as chaos breaks out. Everyone is screaming, flailing, but not because they're afraid. They're all in pain. Valentina's fellow students are bleeding from their ears, eyes, and noses. They're foaming at the mouth.
Oh my.
This doesn't make sense. None of it makes sense. A couple of them are tearing at their clothes frantically, madly.
Oh
Valentina
my
has
gosh.
never seen anything like it.
What's inside
And
of them?
suddenly, to her shock, more of them begin to collapse to the ground, one by one.
Oh man. that thing
Valentina
turned
tries
from
to
the
pull
inside.
Victoria to her feet, only for the girl to rapidly bite Valentina's hand.
Oh.
She tries again, pulling the convulsing girl down the mountain with her. They're
Gonna
only able to
turn
make it
into
a few more
monsters.
steps before Victoria fights free again, but she doesn't go far. She falls to the ground and stops moving.
Yep. She's out.
Valentina keeps going. Maybe if she makes it to a nearby cluster of rocks, maybe then she'll be safe from this madness.
Oh my
But
gosh.
when she nears the rocks, she halts, stopped in her tracks by yet another terrifying sight. One of the other girls, Tatiana, is already at the rocks and is bashing her own head against them over and over again. A curtain of blood obscures her face from view. Tatiana keeps smashing her head into these rocks until eventually she stops moving.
Oh man. Oh my.
Valentina is frozen, paralyzed by complete shock and panic.
Oh my
In the span of minutes, and with zero warning, her entire group has dropped dead. Suddenly, a hand shoves Valentina, shaking her out of her stupor. Someone is still alive. It's one of the boys, Dennis. He's on his hands and knees, bleeding from the ears and mouth.
Oh my
Yet
God.
he's able to muster up enough energy to give her one single command. Run.
She's fucking gone.
This shocks Valentina
Gone.
into action. She bolts downhill, making for the tree line. Behind her, Dennis tries to crawl after
You
her,
don't gotta tell
but
me
he has
twice,
no strength.
Buster.
She glances over her shoulder to make sure he's following, yet he isn't. He's lying face flat in the snow, completely immobile.
R.I.P. man.
By now, it's just Valentina,
Something ate them up
overcome
out there,
with
boy.
fear and a burning desire to survive.
And he
She
eats up the
advances
animals
downhill
too.
through the swirling wind and blinding snow, stumbling, crawling, before at last she finally
No. Why is it freezing? I'm dropping frames. Hold up.
reaches the tree line.
Dang. Okay. Still working, still going.
and a shelter from the wind. She digs a sleeping bag
Random
out of her
spike.
backpack
Don't know what that
and
was
crawls
about.
inside.
Fucking cut that
She
shit down to
huddles into
HD
a
then.
ball for warmth
Shit tweaking.
before she passes out. A day later, the weather subsides. Valentina wakes up on August 6th, and it's quiet. No screams, no howling wind. Just the gentle rustling of trees and the drip, drip, drip of the melting snow. She cautiously emerges from her sleeping bag. The sun is out. Even though she slept for almost 24 hours, she doesn't feel rested. The horrific sights from the day before are clear in her mind's eye. She wishes that she could dismiss it as a nightmare, something caused by a lack of sleep or exhaustion, but she knows the truth. She can't kid herself. She's alone.
I mean, what
Valentina
do you do?
slowly starts to trudge back up the
You
mountain.
just watched your whole squad get wiped out. Like literally, watched your whole squad wipe themselves out.
She's got
Actually,
to see her fellow hikers.
quite literally wipe
She
themselves out.
needs to have some sense of what happened. Before too long, the bodies come into sight. A cluster of 4 of them by the rocks, and 2 farther up the slope. They're all still and silent. Steeling herself, Valentina walks from body to body. She can't do anything for them now besides close their eyes. She passes Tatiana,
Damn,
the
bro.
24-year-old
That's sad.
secretary, the one who smashed her face
Put them
into
in
the
peace.
rocks not long ago. She passes the small body of Timur, who was only 15 years old. He was the youngest of the group. Victoria was also there. Valentina couldn't help but feel some kinship with the other girl. Only a year younger than her, she had been so eager to hike that she had her parents persuade Lyudmila to let her join them, even though she was an inexperienced
Good,
hiker.
Simon.
It breaks her heart to see Dennis, the boy who saved her, lying on the slope. If he hadn't told her to run, she might have died there as well.
He was the last
Once
final
she's
push.
closed all their eyes, Valentina does her best to
Good, was
cover the
good.
bodies with one of the tents. She gathers whatever supplies she can from their packs: food, Lyudmila's map, and a compass. But as it turns out, the map and compass are of little use, because Valentina is lost.
Oh, what I'm watching right now is this Siberia's strangest unsolved mystery. So these people been going crazy on this expedition, a school-funded expedition. Teenagers out here going crazy, and to the point where the madness is making them take their lives.
The
Shit
snowdrifts make it impossible to follow the path that Lyudmila planned for them. They were less than halfway through the 40-kilometer route, and Valentina doesn't want to risk hiking over the snowy
And I'm
peak
pretty sure this
alone.
girl's only like 17.
Instead, she decides to head back down
And
in
she's
the
the only
general
one that's
direction
alive.
their group climbed up. She needs to get to a more reasonable altitude as soon as possible. As she continues her descent, a promising sight greets her eyes. Thin cables running above the treetops, power lines which
Electricity.
run to the nearby peak of the mountain. Making her choice, she continues walking, her eye on the power lines,
Good direction.
trusting that they'll show her a way to safety. After
Let's
all,
hope so.
when there's power, there's bound to be civilization.
That's what I'm saying.
Even though it's
Power is a good
entirely
thing.
downhill, it's an arduous journey. Her supplies wear thin fast. She eats a dried golden root, foraged by the group several days before. It's rich in minerals and keeps her going. Her home feels impossibly far away in these desolate mountains.
I'm glad that
Yet
shit
one thought
was enough for her.
pushes Valentina forward. The thought of her home back in Kazakhstan. The thought of her family who had trusted Lyudmila to bring their little Valia home safe. Valentina has to survive to see them again.
For the family, bro. It's all about family. Nigga.
She travels
That's the
from
only thing
tower to
giving her
tower,
that.
pausing to catch her breath, but never stopping. She treks for 4 days, growing delirious. And one fortunate night, she finds a winter hut unlocked. She collapses inside,
days.
grateful for the shelter. But she's on her feet the next day, determined not to die alone in the mountains.
She's on that,
She
boy.
doesn't notice when she catches a cold, but she can feel a fever eating away at her.
Damn,
Has to
this is
pause
Survivor
every
right
so
here,
often
boy.
to allow herself to cough.
This is fucking Survivor.
At lower altitude, there's less snow, but aside from the cabin, she hasn't seen any civilization, not a town or even an outpost. Because of this, doubts begin to eat away at her. Perhaps she should have tried to retrace her group's footsteps instead, back to the town they started out from. Finally, Valentina reaches a river. This gives her some hope. Many of the rivers in the area flow from Lake Baikal, which is where they started their trip. She follows the rocky shore, heading upstream in hopes that someone will see her. And eventually, by the grace of God, someone does. On August 9th, 1993, tourists from Ukraine cross her path. One of the tourists, Alexander Kvitnitsky, sees her and swims to her side. Valentina has done the impossible. She survived. When she's rescued, she's incoherent and is only able to give local police a scattered account of what happened.
That's fucking crazy,
Nevertheless,
bro.
while Valentina is sent home to her family, a search effort's mounted to find the bodies of her companions. And what rescuers find defies explanation, even to this day.
What happened?
August 24th, 1993. Helicopters fly over the peak of the Kamar Daban mountain range. They've been searching for weeks, trying to locate the missing group of hikers from Kazakhstan.
Weeks.
Finally, someone sees something and the helicopters descend. They found the summit group's final campsite, and with this, the bodies. The snow around the peak has melted, revealing a gruesome sight. After 19 days of exposure to the elements, their bodies are in poor condition. The tent that Valentina draped over them couldn't prevent them from rotting.
Damn.
None of the bodies have eyes,
Oh.
and worms writhe in their empty sockets.
Oh.
With increased visibility on the mountain, rescuers are able to see that the hikers died only a few hundred feet short of Titran's peak. A wooden tower is indeed there.
The shit that she said they shouldn't go to because she don't even know if it's on there, bruh. This motherfucking leader was not even prepared, bruh.
Which would have protected them against the elements far better than a flimsy tent on the
But
side
she
of a mountain.
didn't want to go to it.
Why Lyudmila
It's her fault,
hadn't
bro.
fought to get there safely puzzles the search party,
It's her
even
fault,
as
bro.
they gather the unfortunate victims. More puzzling is the fact that they find only a single can of stew by the campsite. Nothing else, no other food, not even a candy bar wrapper. It's this evidence that seems to indicate that this group was underfed and needlessly exposed to the elements.
So I thought she said she was going to eat 4 times a day. What the fuck? So they didn't
zip
even
up
eat
the
for
bodies
real?
in bags and load them onto the
Oh, yeah,
helicopter.
no, she's fucked up for
The
that.
smell is unbearable. as
Terrible
they take
ass
them
fucking
back
leader.
to be autopsied. The bodies are found to be protein deficient and malnourished.
Of course.
The leader
See?
of the search party, Yuri Golias, has seen enough. The can of stew,
Malnourished.
the hazardous placement of their campsite. To him, it's no
And
mystery.
she knew this wasn't the place to be at. And she was like, nah, that thing could be there, but let's not do it.
What happened to these kids on the mountain?
Cause these
And he
motherfucking kids to
knows
die.
exactly
This shit crazy.
who to blame. Lyudmila herself.
Yeah. Who do you think?
Yuri is familiar
He
with
was really not
Lyudmila
no leader
and
like
has
that,
long
boy.
believed that she mistreated her
It's
students.
trash.
Based on his previous encounters with her, Yuri claims that she often pushed her teenage students to their limits, including
Why?
underfeeding them and not providing them
That's
with proper
fucked up.
clothing for the elements.
How? Why?
In Yuri's
Why?
mind,
These are
there's
children.
no doubt that
You're taking them
Lyudmila's
up
poor
into the
leadership
fucking mountains. They're
contributed
15.
to the deaths of the group at Kamar Daban. Even further, he claimed that he wouldn't put it past Lyudmila to choose a poor campsite in order to, quote, toughen her students up. But even still, not everyone agrees with Yuri's assertion.
I don't know, bro.
Valentina, after years of silence in the wake of this horrific event, spoke out in support of Lyudmila Korovina.
I mean, you was a
She
part of the
claims
group.
that the summit group was well fed and cared for throughout the hike, and that Lyudmila knew that they were hikers of varying experience, and so she planned for a diet of 2,400 calories a day. The official cause of death for the 5 students is listed as hypothermia. As for Lyudmila herself, it's believed that she died of a heart attack upon seeing Sasha die before her eyes. But the details of the event itself defy such an easy conclusion.
Damn.
For instance, why was Valentina able to survive if all of them were in the same state of malnutrition and exposure?
Yeah, like what
How
was
was
it?
she, a
The willpower in it.
17-year-old girl, able to outlast an experienced mountaineer and her own peers? And most of all, why did their deaths happen so suddenly and within such close proximity? Satisfactory answers,
Just
unfortunately,
spread around
remain elusive.
and got them all, but not her.
However, as it stands, the facts
So
are
weird.
these. 6 healthy individuals died very suddenly in close proximity to each other. All of them displayed strange, unexplained symptoms in their final moments that included self-harm, bleeding from the ears, eyes, or throat, and sudden, debilitating pain. All of these details come from Valentina herself, who describes the experience like a horror movie. Now, hypothermia could explain some of the symptoms Valentina noticed, such as the attempts to frantically disrobe. This is a phenomenon known as paradoxical undressing. In extreme cold weather, a person's blood vessels constrict to save heat. As hypothermia sets in, the constriction of these blood vessels fails, causing warm blood to flood back into the extremities,
Makes it feel
making
too
someone
hot.
feel like they're overheating, even as they literally freeze to death.
Oh my god.
People in this state frequently tear off items of clothing, only hastening their own demise.
Oh
But
man.
smashing your own head
They're
into
eating
rocks,
away at 'em
sudden,
inside.
inexplicable bleeding, neither of these are symptoms of hypothermia.
Yeah, I don't know
Nor
what
should
that,
they be
that smashing
contagious
her
in the
head
way
is.
that they seem to be among Lyudmila's group.
Yeah, nah.
Another theory is that these hikers suffered from altitude sickness, which can trigger any number of adverse effects in the human body. Among these can be
I told you
pulmonary
that
edema,
altitude was
a
different.
buildup of fluid in the lungs, which can trigger heart palpitations and bloody coughing. Perhaps it could have been something they ate or drank. The strange behavior that Valentina witnessed could have been caused by a poisonous plant that the others had consumed and she had fortunately avoided. Or perhaps contaminated water was the culprit. Lake Baikal is known for high levels of contamination, and if hikers filled their water bottles from one of its rivers, they could have poisoned themselves without even knowing it.
That's true too. But the leader would know that
In the
shit. But
pursuit
she didn't have
of
no
truth,
fucking patch notes.
Curious researchers
Not gonna lie,
have
we
turned
blamed it on the
away
leader
from
there.
the direct
She
events
was
of the
tweaking.
hike and
Oh,
towards increasingly elaborate conspiracy theories. The most dramatic of these is that these hikers were unwitting participants in a Russian weapons test, victims of some nerve agent that got unleashed under the cover of the storm. Novichok chemicals, for instance, were developed in the late stages of the Cold War by the Soviet Union.
Oh.
Phosphorus-based and designed to be undetectable,
So now
they
it gets
cause
deeper.
disorientation as well as foaming at the mouth and
Yeah.
can be administered in aerosol form.
That's weird.
A similar, if slightly outlandish theory assumes that the sudden hysteria and death among the group was caused by infrasound.
Oh.
The term infrasound refers to low-level frequencies that can
Yeah, that
occur
only they can
naturally,
hear.
emitted by geophysical phenomena. These sounds, while not audible to the human ear, can be felt by the cochlea in the inner ear, causing extreme discomfort. In certain extreme conditions, infrasound has been known to cause sudden sickness and even death.
Oh.
At certain frequencies, it's theorized that these sounds
And they know
can
how to
cause
use
the
all these
internal
weapons, don't
organs
they?
of someone to vibrate, causing internal damage.
Oh.
But even still,
Vibrate.
what could have caused these sounds? Why would they have affected only 6 of the 7 hikers?
Yeah, exactly though.
Every single theory inevitably runs up against the central question of this entire
Only one
incident.
person that made it out.
How did Valentina survive? When a journalist asks her how she managed to live when the others didn't, her answer is simple. She was in very good physical condition. She lived on a farm her whole life and was used to high altitude and strenuous exercise. But this description could apply to any one of the hikers present,
True though.
even the
too.
youngest member of the group. 15-year-old Timur was an experienced outdoorsman.
Wow.
The only hiker with questionable experience was the 16-year-old Victoria, who had previously suffered from fatigue on easy hikes.
Oh, yeah. Why the hell was she on there in the
Just
first
has
place?
to
What
be
the fuck
something
did you take her
missing.
up on the
Some
fucking
detail
mountains?
that got lost in the noise of Valentina's trauma and the punishing weather. But if there is a key that helps us understand what happened at Kamar Daban, it seems, unfortunately, to have been irretrievably lost. Like the dead, the mountain keeps its secrets. And if there's one thing to take away from all of this, their campsite will forever hold a mystery. Late Nights with Nexpo is created and hosted by me, Nexpo. Executive produced by me, Mr. Ballin, Nick Witters, and Zach Levitt.
Mr.
Our
Ballin.
head of writing is
Word?
Evan Allen. This episode was written by Robert
Who did the
Teamstra.
artwork and shit?
Copy editing by Luke
She was
Baratz.
fire.
Audio editing and sound design by Alistair Sherman.
Good shit,
Mixed
Alistair.
and mastered by Brendan Kane.
Hell yeah.
Research by Abigail Shumway, Camille Callahan, Evan Beamer, and Stacey Wood.
Shout out to y'all.
Fact checking by Abigail Shumway. Production supervision
Abby's
by
on that.
Jeremy Bone and Cole Ocasio. Production coordination by Samantha Collins and Avery Siegel.
Hell yeah.
Illustrations by Rick Ruano.
Rick,
and video
hey,
animation
yo,
by Davin
Rick and Davin.
Thank you all
Y'all
so
went
much for listening to
stupid
Late
with the
Nights
animations,
Nexpo.
boy. Rick and
I
Davin.
love you
Y'all
all.
went stupid with the animations.
And good night.
Good night, bro. All right, he got his closing remarks and whatnot. Yo, he's about to do a podcast and shit. Yeah, this was fire though. It was a great video, bro. It was a great video. Damn, that was fire, bro.